In 1177, only 500 Christian knights faced Saladin's 26,000-strong army. Everyone expected them to be wiped out in minutes. But what happened that day became one of the most unbelievable victories in history. Before we dive in, subscribe to Vanished Files for more insane battles and forgotten wars. In the late 12th century, the Middle East stood on the edge of a storm as two rising powers prepared to clash, and the Battle of Montgisard in 1177 became one of the most unexpected victories of the Crusader kingdom. At this time, the Kingdom of Jerusalem was fragile, its borders thinly defended, and its young ruler, King Baldwin IV, fought not only his enemies, but also the slow advance of leprosy. On the other side stood Saladin, the powerful and ambitious founder of the Ayyubid Sultanate, who believed the kingdom was weak enough to crush in a single, decisive campaign. In 1177, Saladin launched a major invasion through the Sinai, sweeping into Crusader territory with confidence. His army pushed north after taking Gaza and nearby positions almost without resistance, moving fast across the coastal plain and spreading out as they advanced. Most Crusader forces were scattered across the region, and only a small number remained available to defend the kingdom. Still, Baldwin IV gathered what troops he could, including a determined group of Knights Templar, and began marching from Ashkelon, hoping to intercept the much larger Ayyubid force before it reached Jerusalem. As Saladin advanced deeper into enemy land, his army became stretched and partly disorganized due to the rapid pace, the long distance from supplies, and the belief that Baldwin was too weak to fight. Near Montgisard, close to Ramla, the young king finally located Saladin's main army and made a daring choice to attack immediately. With the relic of the True Cross carried before them, Baldwin and the Templars launched a sudden, concentrated cavalry charge directly into the center of Saladin's lines. The unexpected assault shattered parts of the Ayyubid formation, throwing the army into confusion. Saladin himself barely escaped with a small part of his forces, while many of his soldiers were killed, captured, or scattered across the plains as the Crusaders pressed their advantage. Jerusalem remained safe, and Saladin's larger plan to conquer the city was delayed for another decade. The victory at Montgisard became one of Baldwin IV's greatest achievements, proving how leadership, courage, and timing could overcome overwhelming odds. Though the triumph brought temporary stability to the kingdom, it did not stop Saladin's growing power, and the memory of this defeat stayed with him until his eventual return in 1187 in the 1170s. The rivalry between the Crusader Kingdom of Jerusalem and the Ayyubid Sultanate shaped almost every political and military move in the region, and this tension reached a dramatic turning point during the reign of King Baldwin IV with the Battle of Montgisard. At this time, the Crusader kingdom was weakened by internal divisions, scattered forces, and the young king's advancing illness, and Saladin believed the moment had come to break their defenses once and for all. In 1177, he launched an invasion designed to exploit these weaknesses, moving quickly through the Sinai and into Crusader territory with the expectation that no strong resistance would form in time. His rapid pace, however, created its own problem. The supply train and supporting units fell far behind, leaving the main army stretched thin and less coordinated as it advanced farther from secure bases. Baldwin IV, realizing the threat to Jerusalem, responded by gathering every available soldier, including the Knights Templar stationed at Gaza under their Grand Master, Odo de Saint Amand, with no time to wait for reinforcements. Baldwin led his force from Ashkelon in a bold attempt to strike Saladin before the Ayyubid army could reach the Holy City. This decision set both armies on a collision course, and near Montgisard they finally encountered each other. The Crusaders understood that their only chance was to attack decisively, and Baldwin ordered a heavy cavalry charge aimed directly at the unprepared vanguard of Saladin's force. The impact of the charge hit the Ayyubid lines at the worst possible moment for them, causing confusion and breaking their defensive structure almost instantly. As panic spread, the entire Ayyubid army began to retreat, suffering heavy losses as units collapsed and scattered across the plain. The Crusaders also took casualties, but they remained organized enough to keep pressure on the retreating enemy. Saladin had no choice but to withdraw to Egypt with a fraction of the force he had brought north, carrying with him the memory of one of his most painful defeats. The outcome of Montgisard lifted Crusader morale, strengthened Baldwin's reputation in Europe, and showed clearly how logistics, timing, and momentum can shape the fate of medieval armies. Yet despite this dramatic victory, the deeper balance of power did not truly change, and in the years that followed Saladin rebuilt, reorganized, and prepared for the campaigns that would eventually bring him triumph in 1187. In 1177, the tension between the Crusader states and the expanding Ayyubid realm reached a new and dangerous height, and the Battle of Montgisard became a moment where leadership, more than numbers, shaped the fate of both armies. Saladin entered the year confident in his growing power, convinced that the Crusader kingdom of Jerusalem was too weak and too divided to stop a major invasion. With a large army behind him, he pushed into Crusader territory, believing the path to Jerusalem was almost open. At the same time, the Crusader forces were scattered across different fronts, leaving King Baldwin IV with only a small corps of soldiers to respond to the threat. Despite his illness and physical weakness, Baldwin gathered every available unit, including the disciplined and battle-trained Knights Templar, and made the bold decision to march from Ashkelon to intercept Saladin before he could reach the Holy City. Saladin, assuming the kingdom could not organize a serious defense, advanced rapidly, and without full caution, stretching his forces and allowing parts of his army to become separated along the march. This overconfidence set the stage for a dramatic confrontation. Near Montgisard, Baldwin located the main Ayyubid force and chose to attack immediately. The young king positioned himself at the front of his troops, riding into battle in full view of his soldiers, giving them the courage to attempt an assault many thought impossible. The Crusaders launched a powerful and aggressive cavalry charge, with the Templars striking hard at the Ayyubid vanguard. The sudden impact broke the rhythm of Saladin's formation and created chaos throughout his lines. Ayyubid troops began to fall back, unable to regroup effectively after the shock of the charge, and as panic spread, the entire army lost cohesion. Saladin himself barely escaped, withdrawing with the survivors and abandoning the campaign. Baldwin's victory did more than save Jerusalem. It strengthened the frontier and restored hope to a kingdom that had seemed dangerously fragile. In the end, the outcome of Montgisard was shaped by leadership choices: Baldwin's bold willingness to strike despite overwhelming odds and Saladin's decision to advance too quickly without securing his position. Though the triumph became one of the most significant defensive victories in Crusader history, it did not stop the long-term rise of the Ayyubid power, which would return stronger in the years that followed. In 1177, the military conditions of the Eastern Mediterranean created a fragile balance, and both the Crusader kingdom and the Ayyubid Sultanate understood that logistics, mobility, and supplies were just as important as swords and armor. Armies in this region depended heavily on long supply lines, crossing deserts, hills, and narrow coastal plains, and any mistake in timing or movement could turn strength into weakness. When Saladin mobilized a large, multi-regional force and advanced through the Sinai into Crusader territory, he believed speed would give him the advantage. His rapid march, however, caused his army to pull far ahead of its siege equipment and much of its supply train, leaving him with impressive numbers, but without the full resources needed for a prolonged campaign. At the same time, Baldwin IV faced the opposite problem. His forces were few and scattered, and reinforcements could only arrive slowly. Even so, the small Crusader army was mobile and could maneuver quickly across familiar terrain. Baldwin gathered what troops he could, including the disciplined Knights Templar, and marched from Ashkelon with the goal of placing his army directly in Saladin's path. As both sides moved across the plains, the terrain around Montgisard became the natural point for battle. The open ground provided the perfect conditions for a heavy cavalry charge, one of the Crusaders' few tactical advantages. Baldwin took full advantage of this, arranging his forces so that the cavalry could gather speed before impact. When the battle began, the Crusaders launched a powerful assault, and the momentum of the charge hit the Ayyubid vanguard before Saladin could properly form defensive lines. The stretched formation of his army, weakened by distance and the lack of prepared positions, made it difficult for many units to respond in time. The sudden shock of the attack caused heavy losses and forced Saladin to order a retreat, leaving behind parts of the baggage and supplies that had become separated earlier in the march. The outcome showed how even a numerically superior army could be undone by logistical missteps and poor battlefield preparation. The victory at Montgisard delayed major Ayyubid offensives for several years and strengthened Crusader confidence, yet the long-term strategic balance still favored Saladin, who would regroup and return with greater force in the following decade. In the late 12th century, the Crusader states stood at a critical crossroads, facing rising pressure from the increasingly powerful Ayyubid realm under Saladin. And the Battle of Montgisard must be understood within this larger historical struggle for control of the eastern Mediterranean. By 1177, Saladin had unified Egypt and strengthened his influence over Syria, forming a vast and disciplined coalition capable of challenging the weakened kingdom of Jerusalem. His growing empire threatened the fragile balance that had allowed the Crusader states to survive for decades. With confidence in his expanding resources, Saladin launched a major invasion aimed at breaking Crusader resistance and pushing directly toward Jerusalem. He advanced north with a large army composed of different ethnic and regional groups, believing that a single decisive campaign could shatter the Crusader position. Meanwhile, Baldwin IV, still young and already struggling with the effects of leprosy, faced the challenge of defending his kingdom with limited manpower and scattered forces. Despite his condition, he displayed strong administrative skill and clear battlefield presence, gathering what troops he could and preparing for a counter-strike. From Ashkelon, the Crusaders moved to block Saladin's advance, using their knowledge of the land and their ability to mobilize quickly. Near Montgisard, the two forces met, and Baldwin ordered a bold and decisive attack. The Knights Templar formed part of the Crusader center, providing discipline and heavy cavalry strength at the moment of impact. When the charge hit Saladin's vanguard, it caused immediate disruption, overwhelming the front lines and throwing the Ayyubid formation into confusion. The shock spread rapidly through the army, and soon the entire force began to withdraw. Saladin was forced to retreat back to Egypt with reduced numbers, carrying the weight of an unexpected defeat. Word of the victory traveled quickly across Europe, where it boosted Crusader prestige and offered hope that the kingdom could still resist the growing power of its enemies. For a time, the victory strengthened frontier security and delayed further Ayyubid offensives. Yet despite its significance, Montgisard did not permanently change the balance of power in the region. It became one of Baldwin IV's greatest achievements, but Saladin recovered in the following years, reorganized his forces, and ultimately achieved his decisive triumphs in 1187, including the fall of Jerusalem that reshaped the future of the Crusader world.